Hey everybody, Alvinator here, Mulligans and Hackers podcast, and today on the podcast we've got Gina Nelson. Hi Gina, how are you?
Good, Alvin. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate you taking some time. Now, I did notice recently that you were a finalist for the PGA of Canada Brooke Henderson Female Golfer of the Year. How'd that
That
feel?
is correct. That was very shocking. That's usually like the player rankings isn't something I've followed closely in the past. And so this year the email kind of came out and I was just looking at all the other finalists for the other categories and swiped to that nomination and saw my name and was like in shock probably for an hour. And so it was really cool to be on that list and to kind of be up for an award that is named after somebody that's so prominent in our country for female golf.
I agree. It must have been something else to get an email like that. But so between getting the nomination for that and your beginning in golf, there's a huge story in between there. So let's go back to the beginning. Where did golf come into your life, and take us through that playing golf as a young lady and growing into becoming a Canadian professional on the for the PGA of Canada.
Um, it's going to be a long story,
That's okay.
but
Let's hear it.
so I started when I was very young. Like my parents took me out to the golf course. They had me in the car seat strapped to the golf cart. Pretty well, I was out there since I could walk. And golfed. Had my first set of those Costco plastic clubs as a kid that you whack around, and just kind of got with that. And I actually started playing soccer before I really got into golf. Golf was like a weekend family thing. It was just something to do for fun. And so I played competitive soccer for probably 5 to 7 years, and then was out playing with my mom one day, and Thelma Coots, who used to be a rules official for Alberta Golf and did a lot out there, she was at the club and said, "Have you ever considered playing competitive golf?" And I just kind of was like, "No, like this is just a family thing. Like it's not really anything." She convinced me to try, kind of similar to I heard you guys started on the AGT tour this last year, so started playing competitive golf. That was just kind of the same thing. So I played some McLennan Ross events um, in southern Alberta where I was growing up, and so just kind of got into liking it. I didn't love it at first, but met a couple cool friends along the way, and then that kind of kept dragging me on, and thought, yeah, this is something that I really like. And so started pursuing it a lot more intensely. Had a coach down in Lethbridge, Trent Matson, that I worked with for quite a few years, and he really pushed me to consider college golf, and that was something that I had never really thought of either, and so was intrigued in the process. So went through kind of the process with him of looking as to where I would like to go, what I would like to do, which was a lot more of a process than I think I initially thought it was. And ended up on going down to Montana on a scholarship. And so that was a really good experience for me and met a ton of new people. And golf for me has been something that has opened a lot of doors, things that I never thought. I mean, going to Australia on a Team Canada junior trip was one of those. And I never thought that would happen. Made the Junior America's Cup team one year and made it down to, I believe we were in New Mexico. So another place that I don't think I ever would have thought I would have ever gone, especially with golf. And so it was really cool to kind of have that experiences along the way and learn as I went. And with that college experience, same thing. We traveled around a lot, and I made it to nationals 2 of the 4 years. So increase those kind of experiences further in Florida and Georgia, and really kind of at that point got me hooked. I really loved the game. I was battling injuries on and off throughout college, so it was something that when I was done, I wasn't sold on being a golf pro by any means. I actually got my education degree and was a teacher, and a substitute teacher for a couple of years, and so it just, I don't know, it's opened a lot of doors that, like I mentioned, I didn't think I'd see. And so that was kind of the synopsis of that long
So, what was it like
journey.
when you were a teenager and you were into competitive golf as a teenager, right?
Correct.
So kind of give me some of your experiences with the mental part of golf as a teenager in competitive golf, because when I started golf as an old guy, the mental part of this game is treacherous, terrifying,
Mhm.
and so debilitating at times. As a teenager, and you're in competitive golf, how does the mental part of the game work? Because again, you don't really have the mental faculties to maybe deal with all the things that's going on in the game or in life, and try and balance all that stuff. So, what was the mental part of the game like during those type of years?
So growing up, kind of at the beginning of it, you're on your own. So I played out of the McGrath Golf Club for most of my junior career, between there and Henderson Lake and Lethbridge, and um, I was the one of the only girls that played at McGrath. So if it was junior club championships or it was any time you're playing with other juniors, it was always with the boys, and they were always so welcoming, which was awesome. But as I started playing competitive golf with other females, it's more competitive, right? You're kind of going at each other, and there's little small things that it's you have people that say, or they sneeze in your backswing and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry," but did they mean it? I don't know. Like little things like that. You're like, okay. But for me, what was really helpful is I had a dad who was super supportive, and mom, but my dad was very talkative. So growing up on the golf course, he's always talking. So if it was me, my mom, my dad, and one of his friends golfing, if you didn't take a swing when somebody was golfing, you weren't going to finish the round. Like it was constant noise. And so for me, it was really easy to just kind of block everything out. So I always took it as I'm playing against myself versus against other people. And like you said, with the mental side of it, I would, and this is going to sound crazy, but I would kind of sing to myself in my head. So if I had a song that as I'm driving to the course that day that gets stuck, that's what's in my head. So I focus on, okay, what shot do I want to hit? Where do I want to aim? Whatever. And as soon as that shot's done, that song would pop back in. So it kind of takes your mind completely off of golf, because 4.5, 5, hell, 5.5 hours sometimes you're out there is super draining. So to be able to take yourself completely out of that golf aspect as much as you can is very important. And it's something that and I'll continue to strive to do it because it's obviously a really hard thing. But that's just something that as I've grown older, I've learned to do those little things. And at first, when I started doing that, I was like, this isn't going to help. And shockingly, it did. And so it's trying different things. It's being aware that things are going to come up in the round that you're not going to anticipate. So how do you deal with that stress, that anxiety, whatever it is, in a non-golf way? Because if I have a bad shot and I focus solely on that, I'm not going to play well the rest of the round, right? So by saying like, okay, that's one bad shot, you move on, or you sing a song in your head, you're distracting yourself from that outcome and moving forward and kind of past that to, okay, what is that next move going to be? What do I need to do next to make this successful?
I get that, because again, I played golf now this 4 years, and it was only this past season, the second half of the season, that I actually had a mental breakthrough when it came to having my mind in the right place for the entire round. Because before, you know, I would watch my buddies play, and again, no coaching, and not really understanding the game, and realizing the mental part of the game is 80% of this freaking game, right? Um, of going to the course with so much trepidation and anxiety, and you haven't even teed off yet. So you play an entire 18 holes, whether it's good or bad. You haven't enjoyed the 18 holes because you have that trepidation, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
fear, the fear of playing. Um, the second half of the season, I actually had my mental breakthrough was no fear. If you're going to go to the golf course, play around, play the shots you can play or that you know how to play, and shots that benefit your game a little, as much as they do. Um, but don't be afraid, because I was like, I went to the course and played 18 holes and shot an 85, and it was a a miserable, terrifying round because your anxiety is high, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't have had a double bogey there, or I triple bogeyed there. Or you can go and have no fear, shoot that 85, enjoy 15 of the 18 holes, and just okay, I got 3 holes to work on, or I got something to work on here, and my game totally turned around to the point where the previous 3 seasons that we played, I couldn't wait for the season to end because I finished every season so poorly, and I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this season, right? Like I could never finish a season strong. Well, this season I didn't want the season to end because I did finish. I played well the entire season right up until the final weekend, and I was like, there you go. Then now I'm, I know what I did to make that mental breakthrough to enjoy the game more. And now I can't wait for the season to start because I didn't want it to end. But the mental part of this is something else, and I can only imagine like teenagers and college age people not only dealing with life, school, and all that stuff, but then dealing with the mental aspects of this game that can kick you when you're down. I'm fascinated by that part of this game, so that's why I ask those type of questions about the mental part, because I don't know anything about the mental part of the game when you're young, and then
Yeah.
so you
Well,
went to
and having a good team kind of behind me in college was a really good thing, so that when you step off the golf course, whether you played great or not, they're there and they're there to help. And very similar, even though we played competitive growing up, I was part of Team Alberta for Alberta Golf for a couple of years. And even having those girls kind of behind you, like, yes, you're competing against each other, but you want to see each other get better and to grow. And that was a big part of kind of my development growing up with playing junior golf and being able to have some of those experiences and those coaches to really kind of push you further than you might think you can actually go. And especially with that mental side of the game, for sure.
so college golf. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So is that NCAA?
I was NAI Division
NAI.
One.
Okay,
Yeah.
you won. So give us a little bit about being in that scenario, like team, and how that whole structure works, where teams play teams in college golf. Because again, I'm not too familiar with that type of a league either.
So you get paired up with, so there might be 4 or 5 other schools that are at the event that you're at. And so you'll get paired with it's usually groups of 3, so you'll get paired with 2 other girls from other schools. Very similar to other tournament golf, you kind of either do it on Golf Genius, which was something that we had been starting to do kind of as I was leaving, or scorecards. And you're playing your game. So it's dependent on usually the top 4 scores or the team score. So we had 5 or 6 girls, and so they'd be playing earlier in that week to determine, okay, who is going to play the next event, and who's going to have to sit back. And so for us, it was a similar lineup for most of my career that was there, but obviously some changing pieces. And so yeah, you kind of travel around. For us, we were in Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. Um, my freshman year, we were in Utah. So like we traveled quite a bit. And so kind of like you mentioned with the mental side of things, you're thinking about school back home, or you're here, there, and everywhere. And I was so lucky to have kind of a supportive staff behind me as well, like with my degree, that I know other departments weren't as supportive when student athletes left for extended periods of time. So I was really lucky that I had a good support staff behind me with that. And so doing everything on the road was really easy. And so that was kind of nice having that kind of before COVID. I know COVID was the kind of kicker of everything online and being able to do things away. And it was nice to have that kind of well ahead of COVID and to be able to have that. Yeah, it was. And then for us, we'd have a conference kind of final event at the end, usually in April, because that was our kind of end of the season. Um, and so we would usually go down to Arizona. We played the ASU course down there. And so that was a really cool kind of venue to be able to play at and to be a part of. And then that kind of determined who went to nationals for team and individual wise. And so Kind of as I mentioned, I went as an individual for 2 of those 4 years that I was down there, and so yeah.
What was the difference between, the national level, going and playing at national level, competition wise?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
I was very I played very well in our conference in Montana. And so I knew it was going to be tough competition, like going there, because you're playing against people who live in Alabama, Georgia, Florida. They play all year round. And for us, obviously, that's not as practical. And so to have competition against people like that, it was a really cool experience to really see where I kind of ranked up. And obviously going with a team would have been a lot more, I think, rewarding having additional support there. Going as an individual was fine, and had my coach with me, and my parents came down as well. And so it was still a really cool experience to be able to kind of share with all of them.
So finish college. So how does your golf kind of pan out after college? Um, what was your next step in golf after college?
So I had been working at the McGrath Golf Club for years, kind of throughout school. So before I went to university, and then in the summers when I came back. And I did that as well after I was doing subbing, because obviously school stops. So I wanted to do something for the summer. So that was kind of my still into golf, still able to be at the course that my parents are members at. So then I can at least um, kind of see them, be around them. Um, and then for me, I got asked by kind of a work um, colleague saying, "Have you ever thought of doing this professionally?" And I just kind of laughed. I was like, "No, that's ridiculous." Like I'm not at that level, and I'd played golf the 2 years that I was subbing, but I wasn't super serious. I was like, whatever, I'm here for fun. I don't really care anymore. And I was trying to get that competitive part kind of out of me. And so he's like, well, why don't you go and try and get your PAT? I was like, okay. So I ended up playing at Lacombe, and started, I'm pretty sure, double bogey, and was like, this is going so well. Like I knew, and in my head, I was like, okay, you're not going to make it. Like this is just not good. And it was at that moment I kind of let my guard down and took that pressure off myself, that I ended up shooting a 73, came second in the entire tournament, and was like, okay, no, this is something you can do again. And this is something that might be worth pursuing. And so I decided to pursue it a little further, and was like, okay, I'll be a part of like PG of Alberta. I'll see what that entails. Um, I'll be at the club. Um, and for me, there was a lot of transitions management wise kind of with the club. So I wasn't sure where I was going to land. I was hoping to have kind of a mentor there. And it took a little more of a turn than I had suspected, and didn't quite have that mentor that I was hoping to have kind of there. So for the first couple of years with my pro card, I was learning on my feet. I obviously had been at that club for quite a few years and knew the ins and outs and knew the members and knew everything, but there was a lot of learning to be done in a position that I didn't really see myself in right off the hop, which I think was something that kind of hooked me. I was intrigued to learn more, and I wanted to learn more. And I realized that even though I've been at that club for so many years and I've played competitive golf, about the operation side of things, I was like, I know nothing, right? Like it really kind of took me for a loop. And I'm a person that loves to learn things. So not knowing a lot of those things was like, okay, I need to know those things, right? And so it really kind of pushed me to go, no, this is the road I want to take. This is what I want to do. Um, and I had some bad experiences with subbing, so I was really kind of excited that this new adventure was a lot more positive, a lot more welcoming than I think I had anticipated. And it's really grown from there and opened a couple more doors. And yeah, it's been really good.
So once you get your pro card, so your PGA of Alberta, is that also PGA of Canada as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, having a pro card, again, some of us not in the whole scenario would go, okay, so you're a pro golfer. What does that mean? Well, Give us a little bit on what you can do or what doors do open up for you when you have your PGA of Canada card.
So we kind of joke on the side of like there's professional golfers who play on tour, and then there's golf professionals. So, being a golf professional that does compete, the golf professional side of things is more kind of learning the ins and outs. So with the PGA of Canada, they're very supportive. They're there to help. So there's PGA of Canada tournaments you can play in, as well as your PGA of Alberta kind of zone events. So it really opens up the doors too. If you want to play competitively, you can. If you don't necessarily need to. And with the PGA of Canada, they have kind of like a training academy. So they're online for the most part. Some are more in person, but majority are online courses that you take. And so you have kind of 6 years to get 30 credits is kind of the goal for that. And a lot of people do it in less than 6 years. But then you get what they call like your class A professional. So it's kind of like you're graduating from your apprentice to something a little higher up. And so that class A gives you the ability to be an associate or an assistant professional kind of throughout the country. I know PGA of Canada also has some links to like PGA of America, Australia. So if there's a job that you're wanting to look elsewhere, they're there to kind of support that transition as well. And so it's just a really cool kind of community. And I'm still learning about all the ins and outs of it. Like there's so much to it, and there's so many resources and people to reach out to that it's overwhelming a little bit, but those connections you make are there to help, and it's really cool to be a part of that.
So, all right, let's talk about this last season, I guess, that got you into the position of being being nominated for Female Player of the Year. Um, you know, give us a little bit about what encompassed this season that got you to that point.
I think for me this year, the big thing being a part of the PG of Canada Women's Championship. This was my first year I'd ever played in it. Last year I'd played in the PG of Canada Assistance Championship. That was up in Edmonton, but and did get low female professional at that tournament, which I think kind of sparked me to go, oh, you're playing well. I think this is something that, yes, it's out of your comfort zone, and it's something you are kind of scared to do at first. I think it's a tournament that you should pursue and just try. And so I did, and I met a lot of really cool new people and had great conversations with a lot of the ladies out there. And I think it just made me realize like, okay, this is something you can do. Like this isn't something that's should bring anxiety on the golf course or should be scary or should be whatever. It's something that you should strive to do and to kind of keep pushing. And so I think for me that was the big pushing point. This last year I I won the PG of Alberta Ladies Championship as well. So that obviously helps to kind of boost your rankings, and played well in other events in the zone. And so there's just there's a lot that goes into those player rankings, but there's those are kind of the two main things for me that kind of pushed me to where I was to be top five for this year.
So where do you think now you've been nominated? What do you think you're going to plan for next year? Um, like, do you see yourself now growing in the sport where maybe you play some more competitive golf, maybe like nationally across Canada?
Um, I definitely want to play the PG of Canada Women's Championship again. I think that was a really great tournament and very well run. But for me, I'm very focused on kind of like the golf operations side. So I don't foresee myself ever going kind of pro, as people put it, of like playing on tour and being away from home and not being kind of as part of a team as much. I Yeah, I really like where I'm at. I'm kind of in charge of our inventory and our ladies events and really growing those aspects. And um, that's kind of where I've found my passion the last couple of years, is that that's where I want to be, and playing competitively on the side is something that I think is an extra and a bonus and something that I still want to pursue and obviously keep growing at, but not having that as my sole focus. I think for me, like those tournament years of playing every weekend or every second weekend those are done. Like I'm good. I'm good having a break, but to be there for like the ladies at our club and to really kind of push them. I know some of them come into the sport older, very similar to yourself. But for a lot of females, it's a very scary experience to just go to a golf course,
Yes, very.
right? So
It's one of the questions
very intimidating.
I asked some of our previous lady guests, especially about influencers and maybe not pros, is like,
Yeah.
is golf intimidating for you, starting, right? And then
It's
100% of them say,
intimidating
you
for
bet.
everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
granted,
mean,
yeah, even for guys, because but
yeah,
guys will go to the golf course, and this is my experience with the sport in this aspect, is guys will go to the course and just make complete asses of themselves, and that doesn't matter, right? They it's a joke. Okay, I suck at this game, right? Ladies are a
hmm
little more refined when it comes to going and exposing yourself like that,
right. And I think
exposing athleticism that way.
yeah, the hardest part for females that I've noticed, and I mean, I experienced it myself, which blew me away, was kind of that unsolicited advice. Like guys can make a fool of themselves, and other guys look at them and go, "Oh, what an idiot!" Right? So for me, like the female side of things, having that unsolicited advice, where, like I mentioned, kind of a guy can just go out and make a fool of himself. The other guys go, "Oh, what an idiot." I'd love to be called an idiot. I would love for that to happen only because usually, and this experience happened this past summer of going to a driving range and it wasn't at our club. And I had just my staff bag with me, like didn't think anything of it. And so some guy kind of comes up and goes, "Oh, you think you're good at golf? Like you have your name on your bag." And I was like, "Oh, like I'm a golf pro, like not a big deal." And he kind of goes, "Well, I think you should be doing this with your swing because you look a little flat and you should be doing this." And I was just like, "Oh, okay, like thank you. I obviously am not going to take it into advisement, but I was just like, thank you. Like I don't want to start anything on the
Keep
range
walking
right
down
now."
the range, pal. Right?
Yeah, and I didn't want to make a scene obviously because he clearly knew who I was, but I just was like, having this happen to a golf pro, I can't imagine, and somebody who's been in the industry for years and who kind of can stand on her own, for some guy to do that to just a beginner golfer, I would probably quit. Like honestly, I'd be like,
Yeah,
okay, that was enough. Like that was traumatizing. I'm not going back to that range, or I'm not going to golf again. I even have some students who, and this year was a big step, was the goal was to get them to play at a golf course. So they are just starting golf and wanting to play so that when they retire and when their husband retires, they can play together. And her big thing was, I don't want to go to a golf course. I was like, okay, why? And like really kind of dug into it, and very similar of, well, that experience is terrifying because you hear all the horror stories of just that happening, and you don't hear about it happening to guys, and it very well might, but doesn't seem like it's as prevalent as it is with female golfers. So one thing that we did this year, me and one of the golf pros up in Edmonton, we started like a golf gals um, kind of social, for lack of a better word. And so what we did is we did one day was strictly just lessons. So we did an hour each and we had a couple different groups come through. And then about 2 weeks later, we did a 9 hole or like a scramble. So you're paired with people, whether you signed up with them or not. And it was just kind of getting people to come out and feel comfortable and have a good time and kind of try and break down that barrier of just come out and golf or meet new friends or meet new people. And we had some people who signed up by themselves and they were terrified. It was like, no, like this is where you want to be. Like we're here for you. And it was really great to, even some of those girls, and this was earlier in the season, some of them reached out kind of later in the season and were like, "Oh, we played this course together or we did this." And it was like those experiences is exactly what we were going for. Like that's what we wanted to be able to push. And so kind of breaking down that barrier was a huge thing. And after this year, kind of having that happen to me, I was like, yeah, this is stupid.
Yeah. When we first started, my own personal experience, sucking at golf, but wanting to be good at it. So that's in your head. And our first 3 seasons we played at a little executive course here, Par 66, Cottonwood Coulee. And if I wasn't playing with my buddies, I wasn't playing with anyone else. I was just playing by myself. And I could get a tee time by myself because I didn't want anyone to see my game. It's just, nope, I don't need it. I'm not comfortable with what I'm doing, and I don't need this added stress of having somebody else looking at me judging my game, whether better or worse. Now, this past season, I golf with more people this past season than I have ever in golf, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no intimidation factor there anymore. I have a golf game that I'm working on, and I don't care if you like it or don't.
Yeah.
You know,
Which I think is an amazing mentality. I know, like playing with other people, and usually if we play elsewhere, I will not say I'm a golf pro. Like I keep that so under wraps. And it'll take them about 3 holes before they ask, like, you're pretty good. Like, do you do this often? um, and so a lot of people have the opposite mentality of you as, well, I'm going to beat whoever I'm playing with. I
yeah,
don't care who it is. And so,
we have our days for
and
that.
and this is this is a very kind of a big thing that I've seen is they see females walk up to the team, they're like, oh, I got to play with them. And so we had that happen when we were playing a pro lady practice round actually. And so we got paired with two younger guys, and yeah, they see us drive up, and you see their faces like fall off. And I was like, this is good. Like I'm ready for this. And they,
I love it.
and so they tee off first, and they hit it okay. Like they're in the fairway, no problem. And me and the lady that I was playing with as well bomb it down the middle, like best drives. And you just see them like look at us, and it was like, okay, that must have been a lucky shot, right? So continue, and a couple holes in, they're like, okay, you're like really good. Like, what's going on? And the lady pipes up really quick. Oh yeah, she's a golf pro. And they're like, oh, thank God. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, we just thought we were getting absolutely waxed by somebody who doesn't know how to golf. And I was like, okay, well, thanks, I guess. Like, it's
I
just things
guess.
like that where, yeah, it's like things like that where their mentality was strictly like, I need to beat them instead of I'm working on my own game
Yeah,
today and I'm playing with a buddy and we're having a good time, right?
yeah.
And I've seen that so many times that that's where I said, like, it's kind of funny for me now. Like, it's at first I was very offended, where it would happen where I'd go to a golf course and play with a good friend, and the starter would be like, what tee are you playing from? And I'd be like, oh, well, I'll play from the same one these guys are playing from. Like, that's fine. And I have a vivid memory of one where he like looked at me, he goes, well, what do you shoot on 18 holes? And I was like, well, aren't you going to ask them that? And he just kind of paused. He's like, well, no. I'm like, well, then why are you asking me? He's like, well, I want to make sure you're playing from the right tee boxes. I was like, well, if you're going to do that to me, I would like you to do that with them. And he kind of just stopped and he goes, well, why? I'm like, well, why am I under scrutiny? Right. And so he asked again. And I was like, well, I've shot the last 3 rounds have been 72, 73, and 72. And he kind of stops. He goes, and that's on 18 holes. And I was like, yes, that's on 18 holes. Like, why are you like putting me under this pressure? And I was like, and if you'd like to know, my friend over here shot 90 and 95 the last 2 rounds, but are you going to hold that against him? Like, probably not. Right. And so it's been a lot of a learning curve to genuinely be okay when those comments come up of like, okay, like I will tell you where to go and how to get there because you're offline. But I've accepted that, like, okay, he's not saying that to be mean to me. That's his perspective of female golfers. And that's kind of the big thing with golf gals and with everything else is I want to help break down that barrier, right? We want more females in this industry and in this sport. And in order to do it, we need to call those people out when things like that happen.
I
So
agree.
even as simple as saying the ladies tees. Well, they're not ladies tees, they're the forward tees. Like anybody can play from those tees. But as soon as you say ladies tees, now those seniors or people who are beginning to get into golfing, they're not going to play that tee box because that's the ladies tees, right? And it's little things like that where it's now making the game more, I wouldn't say discriminatory because that's not the right kind of word for it, but it's alienating the females of being like, okay, well, you're a female, you need to play from there. You can't play from back further. Even if you're better than the guys in your group, it doesn't matter. You're not playing there, right? And that's to me, that was a really wide-eyed moment of whoa.
Yeah, I get it because so we always play, and again, we're guys, and there might be ego involved, but like we always at the executive course, it's not a long course, so we always played from the tips there. and you can get around that course relatively easy from the tips if you're a half decent golf player. But moving to this, we'll say par 72, Medicine Hat Golf and Country Club. They hold tournaments there. It's what I would call pro course, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of challenges. So we always played from the next tee box in from the tips. We played there for forever. And I'm older. I play with a lot of younger guys who hit the ball a lot further than I do. But our handicaps are close, right? We're close to that single digit handicap type thing. And when we played on the AGT, they put you at the tee box based on your handicap, right? And you know where we were moved up a tee box. So the guys I was playing with were kind of like, right? It's like, no, guys, this is the tee box you should be playing from with the
Mm-hmm.
handicap that you have. So when we came back from the AGT, we went to Medicine Hat and we're like, guys, if we were playing an AGT tour event here, we'd actually be playing from the hybrids. We'd be another tee box up from
Mm-hmm.
the hybrids. And they're like, really? Yeah, they would put you where your handicap says you should be teeing off. We wouldn't be teeing off from the whites. We'd be teeing off from the yellows, the hybrids. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let's go play the hybrids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the guys that I'm playing with, it's racking around and bouncing around their head like, really? Like we would be up here? Yeah, we would be up here, right? Because then when your handicap gets to a certain point, now you move back and you play off of the whites, and you'll be flip flopping for a little while until you get your handicap kind of worked out to where it should be, right? So then when we started playing from the yellows, then I started to play not a little better, but I was always in the mix then, right? Like because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to hit it as far. My second shots weren't hybrids in; they were irons in, right? And you
Yeah.
know, just understanding that, and again, guy's ego. Well, I don't want to play from up there,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
It's
and
like, well,
understanding like how it's easy. Well, I wouldn't say easier, like it's just a different
golf's
vantage
not
point,
easy.
right? So no, golf is not easy.
Golf is
So like
hard.
even changing,
That's our number one rule since we started this whole mess. Number one, Mulligans and Hackers. Rule number one is golf is hard. It is so hard.
it is. But yeah, having those different tee boxes, like it just changes the view. And if you're going shorter, like great, play the short tees. You're gonna have irons in. So now you're working on your short game versus your 3 wood game
Right?
that you're hitting from way back. Like it's not changing who you are as a golfer. It changes what you need to do to shoot that same score. Right. And so I switch tee boxes all the time. And that's kind of a big thing that I'm like, okay, if my short game wasn't great last week, well, or yesterday, I'm going to play from the forward tees and I'm going to see what I can do and how I can fix it or where the real problem is. Instead of being like, well, I'm just going to kind of ignore it and go further back and hope for the best, right? So it's just changing that mentality of play from where you feel comfortable. This game is hard enough as it is. Why are you making it harder on yourself?
Exactly.
Playing from the tips when you have no business playing from the tips.
And being
You're not there
comfortable,
to impress anybody.
right? You're there, and I like what you said about working on stuff. So when we play from the hybrids, um, I'm really good off the tee box. That's probably the best part of my game is my nickname is fairway finder and dead putt. Not that dead putt is I've worked on that this past season and my putting has gotten a ton better and has really again helped me bring my handicap down just through putting. But I hit the fairway a lot. I just don't hit the ball far. So I'm in that 250, 260 range, but like first cut fairway all the time, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
we move up a tee box, there's a couple opportunities where I can cut corners now where I never could, and that I like working on as well, right? Like
Yeah.
that's shots that you don't see every day if you're because we play a lot of golf, Gina. Like we play 100 rounds a year. In the 6 months that we play golf, we play a lot of golf. Like we're there all
Yeah.
the time, right? Um, so you play that course from the same tee box all the time. Well, not that it gets old, but if you move up a tee box, well, now you get different looks on the same course, and now you get to try different things.
Yeah.
And once we started doing that with the group that we were in, um, yeah, they weren't so adverse to going and playing a tee box up because everybody gets a different look, right?
Yeah.
Even
Well,
like
and then it helps when if you play the same course all the time and then you play a tournament somewhere else, you're not used to those different looks, right? So now changing that dynamic just at your home course makes it really an easy transition to go play tournament golf and to be able to go, yeah, okay. this hole looks like number two at my course. Like, I know how to do this. Versus if you've never played a dog leg right where you can actually cut the corner, you're like, well, I don't know what to do. Right. So it changes every aspect of it. And it's a super beneficial thing to do.
I think so because we went and played Mickelson National in Calgary for one of the AGT events last year, and you know the most intimidating part about that course was actually just showing up to the golf course and walking up to the clubhouse, going, "Okay, maybe we shouldn't be here," but um, like when we actually get on the course, it was kind of raining that day, but that's a whole different story with us and AGT and rain. Me and Chris have gotten the monikers now of bringers of rain on the AGT because I think they've had one tournament in their 13-year history rained out. Well, they came down here and we had a great day. Then we went to Strathmore and it got rained out. And then we went played in at Mickelson National in Calgary and it rained the entire day. So we now have the moniker of bringers of rain. And if we go next year and play a couple of events and if there's any rain, we're probably getting kicked off the tour. But that's another story. But when we went played Mickelson National, um, I wasn't when we got on the golf course. I wasn't intimidated by any of the shots because you knew how. Not that I know how to play because this game is freaking hard, but like
But the
get off
basics stay the same.
right. Like you
Absolutely.
get off the tee box. You're looking for markers on the course to tell you what type of yardage it is, and now you're learning things like again as a hacker, is the green elevated, is the green down, where's your slope, and all this stuff just roll through your head, and it's like okay, I know what I need to hit here, and I know kind of where I need to hit it, and if I can, I'll get a good result, right? And
Yeah.
I actually that round at Mickelson National was really good until the last hole, but that's a story on another podcast. That actually, but yeah, like getting different looks and just if you play a lot of golf, or even if you don't play a lot of golf, trying the different things, different tee boxes, and sometimes like we played match play this year between the four of us for a weekend. That was pretty cool. Trying different things. I mean, we're huge into scrambles. We love that stuff. Like we have guys scramble teams and we have guys and girls scramble teams where we go play these events in town, and that's the
Yeah.
stuff. That's where we actually get our, we'll say, fun in golf is those type of events because we do. Let's say take it overly seriously, but we want to be better, and we have goals that we want to reach here in the game as we keep playing. But those type of events like scrambles and stuff, those are our fun times where we go out with some of our friends and just it's it's almost like being on a hockey bench. It's the chirping and especially if a guy doesn't make a good shot, it's like, well, what are you here for, right? Like, but
Yeah.
but like I hit fairways. Chris is really good putting and has a good approach game. So like we have a very rounded scramble team, so we're always in the mix of getting W's on scrambles.
Yeah.
That's fun, and that's a different aspect of the game, and that's an aspect of the game where yeah we do bring we have a couple of female friends that we bring into those type of things if it's a mixed tournament, right? And just enjoy that part of it, and I think that's another aspect for everybody, not just ladies, but everybody to again. If you got a scramble, go play a scramble.
Yeah. Well, and I think the taking the pressure of if I miss a shot, okay, who cares? You have three other people that are there to help you, and it's learning your game in a very non-pressured situation, which is it's a really great kind of entry point for sure.
yeah, and it's a way to get more ladies and guys out to the golf course where
Yeah.
there's not that pressure of now you're standing alone there on the tee box and it's your score, right?
Yes.
Are you doing any instructing? Like, do you teach any golf?
Yes. So I do a little bit, kind of mainly with our ladies at the club. That's kind of my big niche, I guess to say. So whether it's short game clinics or just individual lessons or playing lessons, that's been a big kind of thing for me. It's slowly kind of starting to get a little bit more. A lot of our members are obviously gone during the winter because they travel or they're smart and they go somewhere warm.
The snowbirds?
um, yes. So for the winter, it's a little bit slower for sure, but yeah, there's a little bit of teaching that goes on in the busyness of the year for sure.
So what's this swing match golf thing that I saw?
Yeah, so that's a new app that kind of got developed earlier this year. Got It's essentially a platform for golfers, non-golfers, and golf professionals to kind of meet. So obviously, if you're looking, say you're in Edmonton, you're like, okay, if I get that swing match app, what instructors are around my area, um, and what their bio is. So you can see if somebody is strictly a teaching professional, or if they specialize in playing lessons, or if they specialize in whatever coaching packages. You can kind of see that, and you can book kind of based on their availability. So for us as teaching um, golf pros, it's really easy to have those people kind of work around your time instead of obviously saying, oh, I guess I can stay 2 extra hours for after work for a lesson that's later. This way, it really shows them that, okay, you're available at 2 o'clock, not 4 o'clock. So they'll make their schedule work towards you. And it's been really helpful in kind of getting, even just with members, getting them kind of same thing, find a scheduled time that works for you, send a lesson invite or send the lesson request, and I get it right to my phone. It's really quick and simple, and it's a lot easier than sending an email or a text back and forth. And so it's been a really good kind of new tool to have for us. And it's definitely a learning curve like everything, but it's a really great app to have. So even as a beginner golfer, as somebody who's experienced, anybody can get the app and anybody can look into it. And there's a lot of great instructors that are on that app.
Cool. Well, Gina, I really appreciate you sitting down with us and having a chat. This was awesome. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you in 2025, and stay in touch, and we will check in with you again down the road.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.